Right then, last chapter before Easter. Last chapter of me being read for quite some time, and it's the killing jar. Ooh, is it going to be juicy? Let's find out. Mr. Zamora is in full flow. We have finally reached the emergence stage, which is what we saw happen in his office. Once it has emerged, it takes some hours for the wings to be hard and strong enough for flight. You remember how it flaps them lightly? That was so they'd dry quicker. Mr. Zamora reaches down and carefully places a cloth-covered dome on the desk. With a flourish, he removes the cloth. Mary leans forward to see better, and so do many of the other children. I can just make out a glass jar with what looks like a slice of mango at the bottom. The large tortoise shell swoops and dives as though it is drunk, hitting the sides of the glass. The children ooh and ah, but all I can think is how horrible it must be to be trapped in there. The final stage for this butterfly is preservation, says Mr. Zamora. Now we are done with our demonstration, I can process the butterfly. Do you have a question? I turn around. San has his hand up. Mr. Zamora only acknowledges questions from the orphans. That means not from people from Coulion. What does process mean? It means this. Mr. Zamora holds up a clear bottle and a gauze pad. Chloroform. He places a cloth over his mouth and tips some liquid onto the gauze. I get a nose full of something chemical. It makes my head spin. Then he lifts the dome slightly and slides the gauze inside. Somewhere at the back of my woozy mind, I know I'm not going to like what happens next. The butterfly continues to swoop, but soon its movements become more purposeful. It throws itself against the glass with an almost sickening rhythm. Stop! Shouts Mari. You're hurting it! Kidlat starts to cry. It'll be over soon, says Mr. Zamora. His gaze is fixed on the dying butterfly, and all my fear of him returns. He is enjoying watching it die. Mary is up on her feet and running to the front. She goes to lift the jar, but Mr. Zamora holds her wrists. Don't you dare, he cries. But Mary lifts her crumpled right hand and knocks the jar over. It smashes to the floor. But it is too late. We can all see it. The butterfly has fallen on the gauze, its wings stilled. Idiot child, hisses Mr. Mora. You broke my killing jar. He is still gripping Mary's wrist, and I can see her skin going white from the pressure. He raises his hand, and I can see that it is not going to be a light cuff. Mr. Zamora! Sister Teresa hurries to the front. Control yourself! But Mr. Zamora's hand is not stayed by Sister Teresa's words. He has caught sight of Mari's right hand. Leper! He croaks, releasing her hand at once. Leper! She is not, says Sister Teresa, drawing Mary close beside her. She has had it from birth. She is deformed, says Mr. Zamora, eyes fixed on Mari's hand with a sickening interest. What caused this? Mari puts her hand behind her and starts to back away. Stay where you are, he says. You broke my killing jar. You will fix it. We all look down at the shards on the floor. It is cracked into many pieces. Mr. Zamora, it is impossible. Starts Sister Teresa. She will try. Mr. Zamora's eyes glint meanly. Or else. Or else what? Sister Teresa is flushed, her voice sharp. This is the girl you wrote to the government about, no? The one who is abandoned. Uh-oh. There is a pin-drop silence. I want to stop him talking, to drag Mari outside, but I feel paralysed. I should have realised earlier. How many children are born so freakish? Mary flinches. I was there when the letter came in about the white girl. You were ordered to put her into a workhouse, I believe. Sister Teresa is trembling, but Mary is quite still. She is watching Mr. Zamora as though he is a nest full of wasps. I remember now, says Mr. Zamora, enjoying our rapt attention. And I'm sure my brother would be most interested to learn what became of her, and how the nun flouted a direct order and spent valuable funds put aside for orphans on a girl who should be earning her keep. Please, Mr. Zamora, Sister Teresa's voice shakes as much. So really, it is the least a child can do, he interrupts. to fix my killing jar. Yes, sir, Mari says clearly. It is settled then. Mr. Zamora collects his papers together. You can bring the pieces to my workshop. I have materials there you can use. I don't like the look of that. He leaves a stunned silence in his wake, like the hush just before the monsoon falls like a sheet, as if the world is holding its breath. Mari kneels and begins to sweep the pieces onto a sheet of paper. Sister Teresa looks as though she has been slapped. Dinner, children, she manages, then crosses to her office and closes the door. Everyone rushes to leave, but I go to help Mari, holding the papers steady while she collects the glass. Are you all right? It is a stupid question, and she doesn't answer me. He can't make you fix this. He can, says Mari simpler. But how? Even if there were fewer pieces, surely with your hand... Her glare cuts me short. You don't think I can do it. Before I can say any more, she folds the paper up and carries the glass outside. My body feels heavy, and I stay sitting a moment. The dead butterfly is still on the gauze. I sweep it carefully into my palm, but my hand is damp and the wings powder and stick. I brush it into the waste paper basket. The crumpled wings shining forlornly until I bury it deeper beneath used maths sheets. When I go into the courtyard, Murray is not there. Mr. Zamora is sitting on a chair outside the closed door of his workshop. She's inside, says Luca, coming over to me. He says she can't come out until it's fixed. Sister Teresa should send word to Manila. But if Sister Teresa does that, Mary will be sent to the workhouse. I don't like the way Mr. Zamora preys on people's weaknesses and takes advantage of them. Luca places a reassuring hand on my shoulder. He'll calm down soon, I'm sure. The cook pads back to the fire. Mr. Zamora already looks very calm to me. He is smiling, that dead old smile of his. Kidlat pads towards me, holding 2 bowls of noodles, and together we sit on the scrubby ground beside the orphanage door and watch the workshop. The stars are pricking through a dark sky before Mr. Zamora unfolds himself from the chair and opens the workshop door. He enters, and after a moment, Mary comes out. She is even paler than usual, her head bowed. I hurry to stand, legs numb and full of tingles, reaching her as Mr. Zamora closes the door behind her. Are you all right, I say? What happened? It makes no sense for her to be so weak. She has been in there just a couple of hours. Just a bit dizzy, she says. The other children begin to crowd around and she bows her head even lower. Can we go to the cliff? I wrap my arms around her waist and mumble something to the others about her feeling a bit sick, so they back off. I shake my head at Kitlat when he tries to follow, and he sticks his thumb in his mouth. We walk slowly to the cliff, and when we get there, Mary flops down on the ground. She takes in 3 deep breaths. Oh, that is so much better. What happened? Why were you dizzy? Mary rolls on her side. That room, it has no windows, and he keeps all his chemicals in there. My head feels all slushy. I remember the whiff of chloroform, how it made my head spin. How awful. It stank. As for the jar, it's impossible. You guessed it already, didn't you? I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. I start to apologise, but she is grinning. It's alright. It just annoys me when people think I can't do something because of my hand. A huge wave of relief crushes through me at her words, washing away the worry stuck in my throat. Did you manage to fix it of some sort? Not in the slightest. He says I have to try tomorrow, but I'll never be able to do it. No one could. I expect he'll get bored of waiting and buy one sooner rather than later. Won't want to be without his killing jar long. She shudders at the words. I want to ask her if she is worried about his threat to send her to the workhouse, but she is back to her normal self, and I don't want to bring it up. We sit listening to the lull and wash of the sea, until Sister Teresa's bedtime calls us back to the house. Whoa, so that is a really juicy chapter. I am terribly worried for Mary. He has got something over her now, and Mr. Zamora is not the kind of man to me who's going to let that go. He will use that. So I can't simply wait until we are over halfway now, and we have lots to read after Easter. So if you finish this chapter, you have to try and hold off, read something else, and we'll pick it back up together as our group after Easter. Also, I've got some questions below in the description. See if you can answer any of them. Right, take care. Lovely listening. Well done, and we're getting through this brilliant book. Bye-bye.